So this feedback in my mind is not only just wrong, it's so bad that it's ridiculous in my eyes. It is a complete and utter misunderstanding of low elo. That's like saying just go cook a Michelin star meal.
But you highlighted this tweet here from LS here.
Yeah, so the response here, I wanted to get your take on this from a jungler's perspective, Nathan.
Yeah.
So the tweet from LS reads, focus on 10 CS per minute as the singular most important thing. Yes, it's not achievable easily on jungle, and treat the game as a single player game with random newly generated NPCs of varying skills and talents each game, which it really kind of is in below elite MMR. Also, you're playing literally the two best junglers for what you're trying to do, so don't drop them and keep going. Also, don't buy control wards. In your journey to plat, you'll learn a lot of different things, and understanding of vision isn't something that you or your teammates are going to really get. It's just burning gold for nothing.
Yep, the control wards, I give that advice a lot, by the way. I don't want to see people's controls in your inventory if you're iron, silver, bronze, whatever. Like, maybe on like one Baron fight or whatever, or like that Dragon Soul fight, but the first 20 minutes, yeah, don't waste your gold. So let's talk about the focus on the 10 CS per minute. It's just like and this is not just an LS thing. People love this. People like this. So a lot of people agree with this sentiment.
Yeah, so this feedback got 4,800 likes.
Telling a bronze player to get 10 CS per minute. So Ludwig actually responded saying 10 CS per minute is insane. How is that even possible? And it is generally not possible for a bronze player with their skill level or iron to even get or even perception like what that looks like, what that feels like. So what 10 CS per minute really looks like, right? These are the fundamentals and things that you can actually break down to even get to a realm where you can even have the opportunity to get 10 CS per minute. You are going to have to know exactly what good ganks and bad ganks are, right? You're not going to compensate for any one of your teammates' plays. How hard is that to do as a bronze and an iron player? You're just running around and you see someone pushed up, you're like, oh, I'm just going to gank them. But there's so many more factors that go into a gank. Taking 10 CS per minute is also not possible as a jungler unless you take side lane farm or counter jungle, especially in the mid game. And again, these are
advanced.
What are some questions that you're going to go about? When do I counter jungle? When do I take my teammate's side lane farm? There's a lot of grouping and fighting and chaos. So, I mean, with anything, there's always so much you can do giving people advice with text unless seeing their gameplay. But yeah, the focus on 10 CS per minute advice is literally completely almost useless without breaking down the first aspects of like, okay, let's break down what a good gank and bad gank is. Let's play around our R cooldown. Let's be comfortable letting our teammates die. But I sort of guess what maybe Alice is trying to say here is that League's a game of experience and gold, but I probably wouldn't use the dramatic of like, 10 CS per minute.
Yeah, so I have been asked time and time again, a lot actually recently in my Discord about this like LS. And I want to talk about this feedback, and I want to talk about LS as well, because I get asked questions about LS. So this feedback in my mind is not only just wrong, it's literally just it's so bad that it's ridiculous in my eyes. It is a complete and utter misunderstanding of low elo. And I would understand if this advice was given 10 years ago. The fact that the whole topic or the whole advice of just farm 10 CS per minute, it's so detached from reality, it is mind-boggling to me. So this advice from LS giving, farming 10 CS per minute is one of his most common pieces. He has a short that he had recently that I got sent. Curtis, how good is this advice? It was a response, how do I win games and blah, blah, blah. And then the response, you got to farm 10 CS per minute as a laner, it was about mid lane or top lane or something like that. And I want to use an analogy or a metaphor to describe the way I interpret 10 CS per minute as an advice. Farm 10 CS per minute. That's like saying, just go cook a Michelin star meal. Just do that. Why don't just do that? So someone asks a question, what should I cook my partner for dinner tonight? Why don't you just cook this black truffle lobster thing from Gordon Ramsay?
People might think that's an extreme example, but it literally is that example. 10 CS per minute is like beautiful, almost perfectly glazed.
okay, let me put it in perspective. 10 CS per minute, right? In order to get 10 CS per minute.
This is, again, of a jungler as well, by the way.
As a jungler, it's not even, it's just a meme, right? It's just not even, it's just no point even talking about it. It's just so incorrect. It's unbelievable. For a laner, it's even hard, right? Let alone a laner. To farm 10 CS per minute, right? You would have to have beautiful wave management. You'd have to know your matchups. You would have to have beautiful resets. You would have to know how to use your TP well. You would have to know when to say no to plays. You would have to know how to shove side waves out properly. You would have to learn to like fix lane assignments. You would have to have good quality threat assessment because if you die, you're not going to get farm 10 CS per minute. You would have to basically be an elite level player who's smurfing way above their pay grade to get 10 CS per minute.
At the essence, really, the summary is 10 CS per minute is purely a byproduct of
everything. It's like it's like saying just be a pro level league player.
Yeah.
That's the way I interpret that. Be a pro level league player. Just do that. Go to Faker and just copy Faker. But it's not only bad advice, Nathan. It's literally
I see what you're saying.
Unhelpful.
You think it's just absolutely unhelpful
because what you're doing, when the average player, right, who really respects LS, and let's say they're a bronze player or a silver player or a gold player or a platinum player, and they hear that advice, just farm TSS per minute. What they're going to do? This is literally what they do. I've seen it. They ignore everything.
Yeah, and from a jungler's perspective, they will just literally be on their camps on the spot and just be an AFK the
or
whole
even
game.
a laner. They're just not going to do any, they're not going to move to any place.
There's free opportunities everywhere.
They're literally missing beautiful opportunities to play 2v2s or solo kill their lane or whatever the hell it might be. They're just going to tunnel vision on hitting minions. They're not going to win trades. And I've seen it. I've literally seen it. I'm just going to speak from my experience because I've had LS fanboys come into my program. I literally had someone called LS fanboy or something, right? That was his name. Or something. It was like LS fan or something.
Yeah.
And he would play Annie, following LS advice, which is also terrible advice. Do not play Annie. No one play Annie. I can explain why in a moment. And they don't know how to trade. They don't know how to play the game of League of Legends because they're so hell-bent on farming that everything else is completely exploding.
And their view of the game just becomes
distorted. Their view of the game becomes super distorted.
I could imagine those players being really hard to coach.
Very, very, very hard to coach. And I had to work literally years with this client, this LS fanboy. His name was in the name, whatever. I won't say his actual name. And it took me years to undo his habits. Years. He was so messed up his view of the game. Now, I'm not saying that's every single person that LS, who's a fan of LS, but I'm just saying that this advice is not only wrong, it's straight up unhelpful. It's literally unhelpful. And so I think that, and this is the interesting thing. I want to expand this out a little bit more just to LS. LS is an incredibly smart individual. Very, very smart with
Thinks about the game really deeply, draft, creative picks, items.
LS has takes on the game that are that are innovative, that are groundbreaking, that are, that are, to be honest, ahead of his time. He talks about concepts that are literally ahead of his time. The way he thinks about compositions, the way he views the game is very unique. Certain things. But then there's other things that he says that I believe that are completely off the beaten path, not based in reality, completely wrong.
I would say he struggles a lot with the lower, just the lower elo. The classic high elo.
He's in my eyes a high elo coach.
Yeah, and a pro team.
He's a pro team coach. Exactly right.
And they're really two different things, guys. They really are.
I think LS as well is a classic example of someone that is very smart, but is also can't teach. So so people got to realize, and this is why pro players a lot of the time aren't great coaches, because they've played the game at a high level for so long and worked with so many elite players that they can't actually resonate. They can't empathize with what it's like to be at a low level at a game, because they've been such a good gamer for so long. And I was in that it literally took me years.
That's what, when we came out of pro,
we're the exact same.
And we had to reverse engineer what we knew. We didn't realize how much we knew about the game, how much we did intuitively, that we had to break down completely.
So what LS means well with this feedback, right?
Of course.
But in his mind, he hasn't developed the skill of being able to empathize and understand and really deconstruct what it means means to be low elo. So he has these very generic concepts that he's like lived by for years, and he's repeated them over and over and over again, and he hasn't updated his hypothesis, but the game has changed. And so I think people have also realized that this is just not good advice. So again, I think LS is one of those very, he's very unique characters where very rarely I see someone that is so right about some things and so ahead of his time and so genius, but then also so incredibly wrong about certain things. It's like Dopa in a way. I think Dopa is completely fucking in la la land when it comes to certain things, but he's really, really smart when it comes to other things. And then when people say, well, what is my take on LS? Like, what do I think of him as? And I'm like, I've never spoken to LS. I've tried to reach out to him. He doesn't reply to anything I say. He's been critical of me, even though he's never had a conversation to me. He actually doesn't assume that I exist. Whenever anyone asks, he literally ignores it.
That's
so I'm not in his worldview, apparently.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I do respect LS. I think he's given a lot to the community. But I think it's really awkward to talk about LS because, again, I agree heavily, and I think he does have a lot of amazing concepts. I'll give you, and then there's another thing about LS that I will say. And I'm not saying I don't want this to be targeting LS. I think a lot of coaches are guilty of this. He says things with so much conviction that you can't disagree with him. So I got sent one of his recent coaching sessions with Reynad, who was a StarCraft pro. And in this review, because I'm a mid lane coach and I would argue that I'm one of the best in the world. And he was coaching this Syndra player. And he said something that was so wrong. He said something like, you can't use your abilities here because you're going to go You don't go with Syndra because your passive gives you back mana. And he was like, you have to base here. I'm like, no, you don't. There's no way in a million years you have to base here. But the way LS said it, and the way, and from the general public, if you're not equally knowledgeable as LS, or you don't understand the game very well, what happens is that because the way he speaks is with so much conviction that there's no room for disagreement. It's almost as if like he crystallizes everything he says. So there's no room for like disagreement in a way. And I almost feel like that's LS's biggest flaw, is that I feel like my feedback to LS is that the reason I feel like he struggles to adapt and evolve with the game and update his concepts is because he's so passionate about his particular view of the game. He crystallizes his view, and so he has no room for growth. And so I think that like when people watch LS, people think, oh my God, this guy's the second coming of Jesus. This guy's the smartest guy I've ever heard. But where you got to be careful, and where with LS's content, yes, he does say things that are correct, but he also says things that are completely incorrect, but he says them with the exact same level of conviction. There's not like, I'm kind of unsure about this. No, it's like everything is I'm 100% sure type thing. That's the vibe I get from LS. So it's very hard for people. That's why people kind of fall for that, the church of LS and the church of whatever, the Leandries, whatever his whole thing, his spiel is, that I feel like there's not much room for disagreement. And then if you disagree with LS, you have to be wrong because he said these things with so much conviction. He's the second coming of Jesus. So there's no room for actual disagreement. And that's how I felt when it comes to LS. So either you see through that facade, you're someone that actually understands the game, and you see through that facade of what he's actually saying sounds smart, but it's actually bullshit. Like the way he speaks about 10 CS a minute on his shorts, and like I've been watching his shorts recently, he says it with so much confidence. I've never heard someone say such bad advice with so much confidence. It's mind-boggling to me. Like you're literally giving the not only incorrect advice, but literally sabotaging advice, but in such a confident manner. So for me, it's like as a coach, if I didn't absolutely know what I'm saying, I literally say to clients, I don't know. I get asked all the time, shit, I don't. I'm like, look, I'll be honest, I don't really know. You should probably talk to that guy. But as a coach, I feel like we have a responsibility to say that we don't know, because the cost of someone who trusts our opinion, they're just going to blindly follow what we say. We are in a position of authority as coaches. If we make YouTube content, there's people who listen to this podcast that really, really respect our opinion.
Not just that, but we're also, people pay us money. We're liable to get people results as well, right? Like that's another thing.
Exactly right. I would rather.
That me saying that you're not going to get it, or you're going to go down the wrong path. I'll just say I don't know, and that's going to be more beneficial to you.
Like we would rather sound like sometimes less intelligent, or like maybe we don't know as much, or we don't sound as confident because we're willing to say that we don't maybe know something that well. But I would rather do that because the reality is I'm not going to know every little single thing about the game. It's not unfair. And there are people that know more about particular things about the game than me. But we're not afraid to say that because we understand that that's what's going to get them results. But then the problem, though, from the outside is that people assume that because we're saying that we don't know maybe about something, that we're less confident, we're less competent. So then we don't have the same sort of, it's like, it I guess, bites us in the ass, I guess, from a marketing or from an influence perspective. So that's my whole spiel on LS. I think it's quite complicated.
One other thing that LS and also other high elo coaches don't really think too much of, what we really explore in this podcast and why people come to our podcast as a niche podcast, is the stage 4 issues and all the invisible things that you don't realize is going on in the minds of lower ranked or new players, because it's just about the game with the high elo, because that's what that's what it really is.
That's what it is for high elo.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, they obviously will still have their psychological, things that draw them back, or narratives that they have, of course, right? But in terms of the improvement, it's like little 1% adjustments for them, but it might just be like a 30%er for like a silver player that just for some reason just completely mentally checks out lane in against a Kassadin and starts losing the lane.
And that's from people that I know that have worked with LS at a pro level. That's their criticism. The criticism with LS isn't like he has some good ideas, but he doesn't have any perception.
It's like a psychological
aspect of the game because he's only talking about the game. He doesn't understand. He's not recognizing that there is a whole layer of stage 4, which is a huge part of League of Legends because it's a mental game.
Yes.
Right. So look, I think that, again, just to summarize, I think that there's some good stuff here, but specifically with the 10 CS per minute, it just drives me insane.
Yeah. It's 10 CS per minute. It's the end goal. It's not the advice.
It's not even a goal. It's not even a goal.
No, it's not.
Straight up, it's actually should be deleted from the whole vernacular of League of Legends.
You're right.
I've never came into a game where I'm gonna get 10 CS per minute. Even at the highest level, you don't look at Chovy doesn't come into the game with a focus on Faker doesn't come into the game with a focus on 10 CS per minute. They're thinking, how do I take good quality trades?
It's maxing every decision. Yeah.
How do I win the fucking game? What's my role in this game? What's the win condition? Where do I need to be and why? Yeah, no shit. We want to be efficient. We don't want to miss minions. That's a given. You don't need to you don't need to state that. That's like saying, oh, you don't forget to breathe. It's like, well, no shit. I got to breathe. That's like, of course, if I want to be a human, I got to breathe. In League, that is the foundation of the game, is to hit minions and get gold, right? And so as a high-level player, you already intuitively understand that you need to be hyper-efficient and be careful with your side lane management and make sure you get your cannons and your last hits. Now, it's not like anyone doesn't want more farm. Everyone at the high level you don't watch a single high level player that doesn't get good quality farm because they don't get there anyway, right? The difference maker is their there's a lot of difference makers in high elo. The quality of their skirmishing. How good are they at their trading in lane, their micro in lane, their spacing, their mental stack, their threat assessment, their ability to do all these things at the same time. It's not 10 CS per minute is playing the game of League of Legends at the absolute highest level with a freed up mental stack, developmental stack, having every other box ticked. That's why it's useless. That's why it's a completely futile concept.
You can have 10 CS per minute and be a high impact player, make every decision beautiful, and you can be a 10 CS per minute and you can be a complete bot and AFK.
Exactly.
Those things exist. They
coexist. Exactly right. It just doesn't make sense.
You don't go into the game thinking about that. You're right. It should be a deleted term.
It can that term could be removed tomorrow and not a single person would miss it.
It's like when we talk about KDA, Curtis, and like, how we talk about we end games and we don't even realize what our scoreline was.
I have no idea. To the point, I don't even know what the scoreline is in the game in terms of kills. I don't even look at that. I just look at who's fed, who's weak.
Items, gold.
Yeah. Does the Yona have Bork yet?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was playing a Rek'Sai game yesterday, dude, and we were like losing the whole time. I just wasn't dying because I was just chaos was happening around, and then I just ended the game like 11-3, and it didn't feel like I was 11-3 the whole time because also their comp was also good into me, right? So it was it's the same thing like that. It's just a byproduct.
It's a byproduct,
and I never would be like, I'm gonna get 11 kills this game. It's literally just making this good decision. Oh, we'll get a kill there. This decision. to protect this lane
So
here.
that's my point. It's an outdated concept, and I think as of 2024, where we're at is that coaching and the game has just got a lot more solved. What I mean by solved is that the teaching of the concepts. So. I'll give you an example, right? I could have told you 5 years ago that it was bad to die to a gank. But now, if I look at someone, why they die to someone dying to a gank, I could literally break down exactly why they've died to that gank, where their mental energy was focused, like the whole concept of the mental stack, breaking down where the retention was, why this particular concept was occupying their mental stack. I could speak for 30 minutes on literally this death, why they died, how they could improve at every single aspect of that death, and what should they prioritize based off where they're at in their journey.
And there's more levels to that as well. You got the value of the gank. It's like, how much resources did you burn? What did the enemy jungler? What did your jungler get?
That is where we're at now. That is 2024 coaching, the highest level of coaching right now that we've evolved for years and years and years. It isn't these basic generic things. It's the execution of this. How do you actually get better at this stuff? Because anyone can say, don't die, farm 10 CS a minute, track the jungle and dodge every skill shot. Anyone can say that. Where's the value? That's my point.
Yep.
So that's my 2 cents. If anyone, I get asked that question a lot.
There you go, Curtis. People, you can just link people to that section.
Link people
right
to
now,
that.
Curtis.
Exactly right.
It's finally been done.
You know what? I would love to speak to LS.
Okay.
Someone.
That's an invitation then, Curtis.
Yes, I want LS to come onto this podcast, or even me just do an episode with LS and just talking about the game.
Yeah.
I would love to talk and have an actual productive conversation about what we agree on, what we don't agree upon, what is the game of League of Legends, like what is the game of League. And this is where we're probably going to agree on a hell of a lot of things, and we're probably going to disagree on a hell of a lot of things. But I just don't see that happening. But I would love for it to happen.
Where would you start? What would be the first question that you would want to explore?
I think the best way to go about it would actually just be like looking at gameplay together.
Yeah, I'll just get a VOD up.
And then that break down a gameplay.
And that will lead to other...
Yes.
You go down rabbit holes when you go...
We like load up a bunch of VODs of like different ELO brackets. We just break down VODs and then... what would you say here? And this is what I would say. This is what would you say? And, and we just go, and maybe we look at his gameplay and he looks at my gameplay.
Yeah.
And we just go, shit like that. Like just the game. Like let's just talk about the game. Nothing that's esoteric, nothing that's bigger picture.
No.
Just literally show us the game and let's get into the specifics.
Yeah. And remember, we're not just going to be talking about, you wouldn't just be talking about the game. It'll be the psychological aspects, what's happening in front of us in the screen.
Yes, I would love to psychoanalyze LS's gameplay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why you're making those decisions.
And also see how he would review his own gameplay.
Yeah, how does he review his own game? What does he say about his own mistakes?
Yeah.
That's what I would love to get into.
That's fun.
Again, I don't see it happening, but I would love for that to happen.
Yeah.
I think that would make some of the most valuable, educational, and most interesting League of Legends content.
Well, I don't know. You record guides with Mysterious and Tim and stuff like that. Like I've recorded guides with Perry, and we would do like review, like because sometimes you do like a clip or a mid-game sequence, like in our guides for like Udyr, for example, do like a 15-minute mid-game sequence, and we'll go on tangents, but we sometimes look over the gameplay. And like Perry will be like, why am I doing this? And like you see, like because you review it, you thought that you were uploading the clip, it was great, and there's still really good learnings. But you're like, oh shit, I can optimize this a bit more and stuff. And you have that conversation. It's really fun. You actually realize how much you could even be improving yourself as well, even though it's guide material.
Yeah, 100%.
So it does work. The bouncing back and forth between the players that are
especially when there's gameplay in front of you.
Yes,
because that's the thing that's the glue.
That is the glue. Yeah, it has to start from that.
I'm very open to that.